evening. I'll call the meeting to order, and if you'll please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we can have a roll call, please. Tracy?
Sure. Trustee Bowser?
Here.
Trustee Rivard?
Here.
Trustee Vanderhyde?
Here.
Treasurer Gilmore?
Caught in traffic.
Secretary Slager? Here. Vice President Schaffner?
Caught in traffic.
President Reed?
Here. Thank you. And if we could just note the time they arrive for the minutes, whenever traffic allows for that. So I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Having none, Slager,
Yes.
Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Rivard,
Yes.
Bowser,
Yes.
Reed, yes. The agenda is adopted. Moving on to consent items, I'll entertain a motion for approval of consent items as approved.
So move.
Support.
Slager,
Yes.
Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Rivard,
Yes.
Bowser,
Yes.
Reed, yes. Consent items are approved. And that brings us to discussion and our first item, bond refunding resolution with Jeff Malik.
And I'm gonna wrap all four of those A, B, C, and D's together because they all pertain to the school bond loan fund refunding. So there's really three documents that are attached to the board book. The first one is just an updated financial projection for the refunding. The only difference to note on that is that I had our municipal advisor use what I think is gonna be our underlying rating of A+. So that really just from the last projection I talked about the last meeting, bumps up our savings from a little over 300,000 to around 360,000. Okay, so that's positive. So everything there remains the same. The second attachment for that resolution is the actual resolution. And really, you know, in part 1 and 2 of the resolution, there's just a couple things I want to point out. One, in the issuance of bonds, you guys are approving that we don't exceed $6.7 million in bond issuance. Right now, we have about exactly $6 million balance in the school bond loan fund, but then we also build in the cost of issuance for the bond counsel, the underwriter, and the MA into that. So it will more than likely be somewhere in the neighborhood of 6.1 to 6.2, okay? But the cap is 6.7, just to make you aware of it. We're also only going to proceed with this refunding if we have greater than 2.5% net present value savings. On the issue, the projections show a 5%, but if the bond climate changes in the next couple weeks before the rating call, then we'll back off of that, and then we will be out $0 as an expense, and then we'll put the brakes on and not do it. Okay, so I'll continue to monitor that. And then the last piece of information is that the underwriter's discount will not exceed 0.75% of the par value of the bonds. Okay, so those are really the three key things to look at in the resolution. And then the last piece of information pertaining to the resolution is really just a draft timeline from basically when you adopt the resolution tonight to the final closing. Now, Scott and I discussed this a little bit, and we wanted to be strategic throughout this process. So what we're hoping to do is sell the bonds a week or two ahead of absentee ballots being released, so that we can do a nice press release to show the taxpayers their savings on the long term debt. And then the final closing, when the funds are sent to the state of Michigan, is projected to be somewhere in the beginning of October. So we can do another press release for the closing, remind voters that, again, this is our true savings to the district's taxpayers. So those are really kind of the 2 dates that I wanted to point out in the draft timeline. And if anything changes, you know, we'll keep you updated. So, and these dates may fluctuate a couple days here and there for some of those items on there. But Scott and I will obviously see this process through. Let's stick close to that timeline. So that's the resolution. The next three items, B, C, and D for discussion, are really the same key players that you already approved a couple months ago for our bond initiative, for the $81 million bond initiative. So we have Miller Canfield as bond counsel, Hilltop Securities as our investment banker underwriter, and then Baker Tilly as our municipal advisor. Same parameters on all those, just updated for this school bond loan fund refunding. Questions on any of those?
School bond loan fund, maximum 6.7. 6 million is approximately what we actually are going to be
Yeah.
using. But it could go to 6.1 or 6.2. Those are all expenses that are involved?
It's just, so that's the amount of money that we're refunding, right? So we've got this variable rate loan essentially through the state of Michigan. We're gonna issue bonds that pay off that debt at a fixed rate that's lower, much lower than our current 3.4% rate that we're paying. So we have $5.95 million in balance as of July 1. The interest rate's 3.4%. So from the time we close on the bonds, we'll have to pay that interest cost from July to October. So that'll be added on to the $5.95 million. And then we'll have our costs that we'll pay out to our bond counsel, underwriter, and municipal advisor, based on the engagement letters.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to E, handbook code of conduct.
So item E, we had some questions after the initial presentation of the handbook code of conduct proposed changes in the mid-July meeting. I met with Jeremy Verwise and he gave me some feedback, so I'll be able to report out on that. As initially we were going to have Ian Kofer here to do the do's and don'ts of campaigning. The thought was to have all the administrators be a part of that meeting as well, but since we're bumping that back to our August meeting, the high school administrators will be there at that meeting, and so they'll be able to answer any additional questions that we have in person at that time. Brian may be able to help us with some insight, but otherwise we are not, it should not be the case that you feel pressured at all. We want to make sure that you've got all the information that you need before we call these proposed changes to a vote. And so in regard to the items related to the change with attendance, as Jeremy explained that to me, that language is based on the language that the Kent ISD is recommending and utilizing. And so since we're partnering with the Kent ISD for our truancy support, the team was just feeling that it made sense to utilize their language in our handbook documents. And so I recognize that it may feel a little wonky or wordy at times, but that was the basis of that recommended change. The parking piece with underclassmen leaving campus, one of the questions that was raised is, well, what about students that walk off campus? And Jeremy's response was that they're trying to make incremental improvements. They have far fewer students walking out the door and walking off campus as they do heading out to cars. And so they thought that this would be an opportunity to hopefully try to retain some of those students on campus where they should be, versus having it be more of an open season as it currently is. The piece in terms of the dress code, Jeremy was surprised when I asked him about the changes to the dress code, because it was his understanding that there were not going to be any changes to the dress code. The information that he had given to his administrative assistant was that the codes would match. There wouldn't be the additional language, the additional provisions in place. And so that was a mix-up in the office. So they're not recommending any changes to the dress code as far as measuring hemlines or length of shorts or anything like that. So it's basically the language that you had approved last summer would be the language that they would want to continue to move forward with. Which then would also clear up the confusion between why is the code of conduct saying one thing and the handbook saying something else. So hopefully that will clarify things. The question about the vaping, in terms of why dances would be withheld for violations to the vaping and nicotine language. That was a consequence that another Kent County district had utilized last year and had positive results from it. Jeremy's response was vaping is the most challenging behavior that they have to contend with, and they're hoping that type of consequence might deter some students from vaping on school campus. What questions did I miss?
Is plagiarism still on there?
Oh, thank you so much. Cheating and plagiarism matches the language that some of the departments use within their class guidelines. That was something that he was going to look into and get back with us on.
Are we gonna get an updated PDF then?
Yes.
Because the one that's connected to tonight still says the same thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Did I miss anything? Were you part of any?
No, there were a couple of those that are just high school only that I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of, but
Okay.
you described everything, and I hadn't heard the updated league address code part alone,
Okay.
but everything else sounded correct.
Okay.
Just a reminder, we'll need to update the values, the core values too.
Yes.
Haven't talked about that yet.
So is there some sort of documentation that indicates that vapors are dancers and it would be best to not allow dancing? I would like to see something more concrete than a different district did it and it seemed to be worked pretty good for them.
Okay.
If we were gonna do that. I don't see the correlation at all. I'm not sure I have a better one. I wouldn't suggest one even, but I'm not sure that that's.
I think the philosophy was, I'm sorry if I can
Go ahead,
answer,
please.
was
Yeah.
more around having consequences that didn't take them out of the classroom. That seemed to be something that would be a deterrent, and so they went to a social consequence. I remember that. I just remember that discussion. I wasn't a part of that decision, but I know that the priority was trying to limit the amount of time it took kids out of the classroom, but still had a deterrent that meant something. But
I guess I just challenge us to come up with, some additional or other options, than stopping a person from going to a dance.
well, we're also this year with Cherry Health partnering to do some restorative practice. So to send them through the RAPS assessment if they are caught with something online, that's a risk assessment to see if there is some type of program or counseling or something. If they
Right.
need.
Well, that's great. Good.
Yeah.
Or community service.
Yeah, it's a fair question though. I don't know the district that does it. I haven't heard that before.
Thank you.
And for the audience, that's Mr. Brian Balding from the middle school.
Hi, how you guys doing?
I was getting him to look like,
Thanks for
who's
coming.
that? Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions or thoughts? So when we put it back on, are we looking at it for discussion and then action, or another discussion, or?
So we have 2 more meetings before school starts. So we could do further discussion with principals for
With a new PDF.
August 12th with a new PDF. And then do action on August 26th.
Do they need time to print this stuff?
It's all online,
Okay.
yeah.
We'd be fine.
I'm not sure we need a whole lot of extra discussion. I would like to have the PDF, the new PDF in front of me before I vote, just so I know exactly what I'm voting on, but
Okay.
I don't think we
That's
would
really
need a
good.
whole other meeting of discussion
Okay.
before a whole other meeting.
And we can play by ear, if there are some bigger question marks that remain, then we know we've got that extra meeting. But if not, we can get it done. Okay.
you.
All right, that brings us to 7, public comment. Anyone who would like to address the board and have their 3 minutes. I don't have any papers, but certainly willing to run the timer if anyone would like to say anything. And they all look like they're good, so we'll move on. Well, so we're going to our action items, and first up, we have our bond refunding resolution, and I'll entertain a motion as it was presented to us in board book.
So moved.
Support?
Any discussion? Having none, Schaffner,
Yes.
Slager,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Brevard,
Yes.
Bowser,
Yes.
Reed, yes. Motion carries. The item B, Miller Canfield engagement letter acceptance as it's presented in board book. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved?
Support.
Any discussion? Having none, Schaffner,
Yes.
Slager,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Vanderhyde.
Yes.
Brevard,
Yes.
Bowser,
Yes.
Reed, yes. That letter is accepted. And C, Hilltop Securities engagement letter as presented. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Schaffner,
Yes.
Slager,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Brevard,
Yes.
Bowser,
Yes.
Reed, yes. Motion carries. And the last action item, Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors Engagement Letter. I'll entertain a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Support?
Any discussion? Having none, Schaffner,
Yes.
Slager,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Vanderhyde,
Yes.
Brevard,
Yes.
Bowser,
Yes.
Reed, yes. Motion carries. That's the end of our action items, and thank you very much. Moving on to our work session.
Okay. So it's been 2 weeks of editing and wordsmithing. We had a team of roughly 20 of us here last week coming together to try and just help clarify some language specifically around the goals that we're going to start working with. Initially, you were presented with just some focal points that came out of the data that each group was looking to focus on in terms of our work over the next 3 years. And so what you're going to see tonight is a revised version of what we talked about last time with some minor tweaks and adjustments. You know, really it's now the work of trying to streamline our language, trying to make it more meaningful and intentional for the viewers and the users. So you'll see little things like the dots are missing now out of Flake. Because as we talk about it, this makes sense. And so some minor revisions are going to come through, but nothing in terms of content, just in terms of communication and messaging. So this is an example of an adjustment that we've crafted. So the value statement, what we believe in, we have gone from this, where we spell out Cedar Springs Public Schools as a community of lifelong learners, valuing diversity, integrity, resiliency, transparency, and working hard as a team, to this, as learners, we value community, diversity, integrity, resiliency, synergy, and transparency. So it's just a more streamlined statement, it's more direct. So hopefully it packs more of a punch when someone reads it. So from this to this. They say the same thing, but with a little bit more direct way of communicating. So the vision, what we aspire. So we enrich the world by cultivating learners who thrive within their communities. Before it was this.
I'm so glad you changed that.
Then now it's this. So our focus is you know, with all three of our vision, mission, values, we want it to be actionable. So we enrich, we value, we are a community.
I really like that you made communities plural. That really bothered me last time.
That was our English friend.
Thank you.
Because there,
You were, I
There's
even
gonna be a
said
lot
that
of
in the plan.
communities involved.
I know, I said the same thing.
yeah, yeah. Oh. So from this. So the other change, this could be a game. We could say, can you find the changes? So we changed the word flourish to thrive. Because when you look in the, when you look up the word flourish, typically it has relevance to plants, things that are sedentary. And thrive is something that typically is associated with a non-sedimentary organism, which is what we are. Okay? And then the last one. And this is where we were 2 weeks ago with this third piece. So the same basic message, but some changes. We foster, as a district, we foster a dynamic community of learners. And we wanted to incorporate the idea that not only are we inspired, but we inspire others. We support each other. And so that's why we made those minor tweaks in the middle. And then lastly, why just meet our potential? We want to exceed our potential. And so that was the slight change that we made at the end.
I just have a little question. In the board book, it says our potential, and then up there it says their potential. So I'm guessing the one that you're showing us up there is the most recent.
This was as of 5:30 this afternoon.
Okay.
After we chewed on it throughout the day today.
I just wanted to make sure I knew which one was the right one.
Yes. And we'll update the board book with this new version.
So
It's
I like
cool.
the fact that we're challenging people to not limit themselves by a goal, and then stop at that point.
Yeah.
But when I hear that, I just wonder, when you say exceed your potential, that's difficult for me. So if I say, a max of something is X, and then I say we're going to exceed the max, well, you've just created a grammatical error for me. It's a hurdle I have trouble with. But if nobody else has issue with it, that's okay.
So that's a great question. So when we circle back to the word synergy, if you can lift 50 pounds and I can lift 50 pounds, together we can lift 120 pounds.
Sure.
So you exceed your potential, I exceed my potential,
Yeah.
because we work together. And so that was our thinking
Okay.
in terms of being able to maximize or exceed that. What we can do as individuals, if we work together, we can exceed that work.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, if I now I've maxed our capacity, our potential together is 120, and then I say we're going to exceed our potential, feels like.
Because we're gonna grab Missy. And then we're gonna be able to lift 220.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, Misty's strong.
Yeah. Well, there's three of us. And then Shannon, we're gonna lift 350. Yeah. But I get that. It's part language, but it's also mindset that we're trying to establish. So that was the mission, the vision, and the values. So then we started digging into the language of goal setting. And this was this has been a good exercise. So the focus areas remained the same. And if you recall from 2 weeks ago, each of the three groups had increasing student achievement as one of their areas of focus. But as we started to really do the work around crafting goal statements, what we found was that increasing student achievement really is an outcome for each goal that we have. So rather than have that be a separate goal, we're going to embed that into our work throughout each of our goal statements. And so you won't see a specific goal for any of the groups in regard to student achievement. Rather, you'll see that as an outcome for each of the goals that we pursue. So the focus area, provide a guaranteed viable curriculum. Our goal statement is to align a developmentally appropriate curriculum vertically and horizontally for each program and grade level, pre-K-12. Pretty straightforward. So creating a comprehensive assessment and data utilization plan. Our goal statement is to maximize the utilization of assessment to bolster student achievement. So are we using the right assessments? Are we giving them in a timely fashion? And are we using the data appropriately to help us move the needle on student achievement? So in the growth area of aligning professional learning, our goal statement is to coordinate professional learning opportunities with district priorities and provide ongoing supports necessary for sustained growth. To capitalize on the synergy of meaningful relationships, again, working together to be able to produce an outcome greater than what we could had we've been working individually. So in this particular goal, the academic and student services group will partner with the engagement team to advance positive student outcomes through authentic relationships with CPS or CSPS staff. So we recognize the need for relationships, really having two lanes. One was within the Cedar Springs Public Schools team, and then one was with our community members. And so we wanted to call this targeted goal out in terms of focusing on positive student outcomes. Differentiated academic experiences for students. Our goal will be to provide academic experiences, opportunities, and supports that are differentiated for all students. So oftentimes when you think of differentiation in terms of instructional practice, you think of adopting or adapting the instruction to meet the needs of struggling learners or to maybe provide opportunities for advanced learners. And what we wanted to do with this goal language is to capture that it's more than just that. It's providing differentiated experiences, opportunities, and supports for all students. So the focus area for this target was to integrate a continuum of supports for social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And then our goal was to provide a continuum of social, emotional, and behavioral support resources for all students. So we recognize that it's not a one-size-fits-all, and the needs that our kindergartners might have would be vastly different than the needs of our high school students. And so we want to make sure that we're providing a continuum of supports that are appropriate for the age and the developmental stage of each of our students. Life-focused opportunities. The goal statement is to enhance career, college, and life readiness opportunities for all students. So any questions on academic and student services first?
Yes. One of the goals referenced horizontal and vertical.
Mhm.
Go to that.
You bet.
And I feel silly because you said it's really straightforward, but
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure I understand it.
Sure.
Straightforward. Can you describe vertically and horizontally what that
Yeah,
means?
so a guaranteed and viable curriculum is that we have vertical alignment so that the things that our kindergartners are learning will help them in first grade. The things that our first graders are learning will help them in second grade. The things that our eighth graders are learning will help them in ninth grade. And so there's that vertical alignment of curriculum, but then also the horizontal alignment. So what's happening in third grade classroom A is similar to what's happening in third grade classroom E, in that they're following the same standards. They have a common pacing guide. They're using common assessments. They have similar materials or access to similar materials, and they engage in data dialogues to help inform instructional practice based on results from common assessments. And so the vertical alignment means that what we're doing helps to prepare the students for the next grade. The horizontal alignment helps to ensure that regardless the teacher that a student has for a given class, that their experience should be similar across the board. Did you want to add anything else to that?
Sure, it also means that we all put our hands in the middle and say, yes, we guarantee these things will be taught at this time. And the viable part, it's possible to teach them well in the amount of time that we have. So, to add on to that.
Other questions regarding the academic and student services?
Yes.
And did that help clarify
Yes, it
your
did, thank you.
question?
Two of the last three, of the growth area and the goal statement, were very similar. And I'm not suggesting they can't be, or that they should be reworded. Yeah, that's one of them.
Mhm.
And I'm not challenging you to come up with something different, but is that what we want to do? We want to have a growth area whose goal is the growth area?
The target, we felt that was, in our conversation, the target was really clear. And so it didn't need further explanation. That target was a solid area of focus as a goal. So by adding a couple of, words here and there, it makes it more, in terms of, it provides, we could provide a similar communicative style with just the addition of a couple of words and not change the meaning. So any other questions regarding academic and student services? Are we tracking in a direction that makes some sense? All right then, transitioning over to engagement. So again, this group wanted to increase student achievement, focus on communication, honoring and respecting the thinking and perspectives of others, capitalizing on those relationships that we could build, strengthening both the district and the community through healthy partnerships, and then celebrating, modeling, and supporting positive behaviors. And then instilling that Red Hawk pride was another important area of focus for the engagement team. So again, just as in the student and academic services, we did not draft a specific goal around increasing student achievement because that's going to be an outcome for each of our goal statements. Fostering effective systems of communication. The goal statement is to coordinate with the operations team, so they'll work together, to maximize the impact of district communication with all stakeholders. In terms of honoring the ideas and perspectives of each stakeholder, the goal statement is to provide individual stakeholders with opportunities to contribute to the work of Cedar Springs Public Schools, and also to celebrate the achievements together as a community. So this was one of the goals. This was an area that we struggled with to find a statement, a goal statement that was clear, as concise as possible, but still hit the area of focus. So capitalizing on the synergy of meaningful relationships, partner with the academic student services team to advance positive student outcomes through authentic relationships with CSPS staff. And the data was very clear in this one. We have roughly 25% of students at the high school that don't feel like they have someone that they can go to, that they don't have that staff member who is that person for them. And so that's not acceptable. So we want to build those authentic relationships with each of our students. And so we're excited to see where this goal can take us. Strengthen the district and our community through healthy partnerships. So identify, build, and sustain strong community partnerships to increase educational opportunities for our students, but also to be a benefit to our community. Again, this was another one of those goals that we've really wrestled with. Celebrate and model, support positive behaviors, provide a healthy learning environment for each student while modeling and celebrating positive behaviors. So recognizing that means that we need to be clear on our boundaries, we need to hold students accountable, we need to celebrate when students are doing the right thing. And then we are Redhawks in terms of our pride in our organization. We're feeling good about being a part of our team. Showcase and celebrate the achievements of students and staff in an effort to raise community awareness and promote Redhawk pride. So that's the big picture view of the goals from the engagement team. Any questions that we might be able to help clarify?
Do you feel like some of those goals are difficult to measure? Do you feel like you've got a good control in place to be able to measure success for each of those? I think they're all positive outcomes that we're striving for, but some feel like they may be difficult to quantify.
I think that some will require us to do, I'm confident that we'll be able to break each of the goals down into some actionable steps. We may be pushed on our accountability from a perspective of we may have to get creative in terms of how we collect data to actually measure the success. It may mean that we do we have to make some efforts to gain more qualitative feedback or more quantitative feedback in the form of surveys. But I think all of these pieces are things that we can, with intention, measure and gain an understanding of our success. We've got data that's currently showing the need for the focus area. And so even if it's as simple as going back out with a simple student survey for high school students and asking, like for example on the goal with engagement or how well you feel connected to a staff member. So I think there are some things that we'll have to do. It may not be obvious currently, but I think we can definitely measure how well we're moving the needle on each of these goals.
Good.
And to that point, is we've taken increasing student achievement out as a growth area in each area, and we haven't created a goal statement for that. Really, that's the big measurement, increasing student achievement. And I'm not gonna ask you specifically how are we gonna do that tonight, but are we going to have something in place that provides the community with some sort of, there is continuous improvement, and here's how we're measuring that?
Sure, so remember that these are multi-tiered statements of intent. So we identified focus areas, now we identify goal statements. Next, we'll identify action items, so actionable things that we're gonna take to help us achieve the goals. And then from there, we're gonna identify points of measurement. And so again, yes. You know, it may be a broad, we may use the same data point to demonstrate success across multiple measures.
So there are additional steps in this process would get us to what I'm referring to.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we're really still, we're at about the 8,000 foot
Got it.
level at this point. Now, maybe the team can speak, we've gone into some deeper levels of work with some of our goals to start developing those action steps and those points of measure. But until we get this clarified and until we get the approval from the Board of Education, we didn't want to go too deep into the work to just respect the process. And this is a lot of thinking. It's heavy lifting.
So after we approve these and we all agree upon them, so then this will be what influences the individual school improvement plan, so those will be rewritten, or how does that go?
So this is the guiding work for the district over the next 3 years. And so school improvement plans we should see threads of our strategic plan in the school improvement plans. They should be aligned, but they may not be mirror images of one another. So maybe the school improvement plan at Beach is focused in heavily on the enhancement of literacy capacity for students in acknowledgement of the third grade reading book. But other parts of their work should be, you should be able to see the strategic plan in their work throughout the building. Okay, so operations, if there are no further questions on engagement. So increasing student achievement, again, enhanced safety and security, both in our facilities and our protocols. Developing a comprehensive facility plan, both for interior spaces and exterior spaces. Enhancing the effectiveness of our communication systems, and providing sustainable access and use of technology were the focus areas for the operations group. So we've seen this one before. Enhancing safety and security, both in terms of facilities and also in terms of our protocols. Our goal statement is to provide safe and secure environments throughout the district for students, staff, and guests. So part of that environmental safety will be in facilities, part of that environmental safety will come from our protocols and actions. Developing a comprehensive facility plan, both considering interior and exterior spaces. Our goal will be to implement interior, exterior facility plans designed to ensure quality physical environments that enhance learning and extracurricular experiences for all stakeholders. So for our students, for our staff, for our guests, when people come to experience something at Cedar Springs Public Schools, we want the space to enhance that experience. Enhancing effectiveness of communication systems. So this is different than just communication. So the goal with the engagement group was around styles of communication and methods of delivery. The operations team is approaching that challenge in terms of the systems that we have, both internal and external. So for example, the engagement group may look at the website and say, we have to improve our style of communication, the way we communicate with our users. The operations group may be looking at the structure behind the communication. So the operations team may look at our phone systems. The operations team may look at our handheld or our wireless communications throughout the district. And so both groups are contributing to improving the quality of our communication, but the operations group is coming at it from a systems view, and the engagement team is coming at it more from a style view. Both critical to successful communication. And that's why we saw it important for those two teams to work together to enhance the effectiveness of our communication. And then providing sustainable access to and the use of value-added technology. So our goal statement is to research and incorporate the use of sustainable technology systems in accordance with our educational and operational objectives. So we don't want to go out and buy $5 million worth of technology just for the sake of buying $5 million worth of technology. If we make an investment in technology, we need to make sure that it makes sense academically, but it also makes sense from an operational perspective, and that it's sustainable so that we don't find ourselves in 5 years with $5 million of outdated technology and needing another infusion of a significant capital asset to get ourselves back on track, or to maintain that level of equipment. So questions in terms of operations? Are you feeling like we're headed in the right direction? Or any questions of the team that's been at the table, scratching their heads, pulling their hair?
I don't have any question. I think it's, I really like it, the base, the outline, the whatever you want to call it. Maybe outstanding. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to academic service update with Jen Haberman.
And Brian Ball.
And Brian Baldwin.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's been a pretty busy month. I can't believe it's already been a month as of today that I've been working here on the team. And as you heard Scott present some information about the strategic planning, the flight plan that we're working on, you're going to hear bits and pieces of that infused in the work that Brian has been sharing with me about some plans that he has at the middle level with intervention. So he's going to share with you some of those intervention pieces, and I bet you're going to hear a little bit about behavioral intervention, social emotional intervention, and academic intervention that will eventually be able to partner with the flight plan that we have in place. So I'm going to let him take it away.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again. It's good to meet a couple of you that I haven't met before. So thanks for having me come speak to you. Side note, right before this, I had a meeting with two parents who their son had his program was a K-6 program, so he's got to choose, and they shopped all the districts, and they chose Cedar Springs, and they were so excited. So it's so much fun to bring a family through and to be a part of a district that people choose and get really excited about that choice. So had that experience this evening. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something that we'll be doing. We don't have a fancy name for it yet, but that's a contest of my teachers. I get to teach for them if they pick the name of it. But it's called, for lack of a better term right now, an intervention block. So it's going to be 30 minutes a day that will be set aside for intervention and enrichment. I'll get to that a little bit more in a second, but I want to start with the why we would do something like this. And I have 3 whys. The first is, when I was hired here, I was asked to take a look at our data. Actually, as part of the interview was take a look at our data and tell us what you would try to improve. And as I dug and dug and dug, I saw 2 kind of glaring things that I was like, these are areas for improvement. It's stuff that I've been experienced in working with districts like Cedar Springs. And they are, one, we were really kind of lagging behind where I think we want to be with students with disabilities, and especially for a district like us. And then the second was, we have this great achievement at the high end, AP honor roll, wonderful things going on there, but there's a lagging behind of about our bottom 30% that is really could use some work. So that's the number 1 why. What can we do to help those kids? The second is, we are a middle school. That means our job is to send every kid to the freshman year ready to go on and succeed and graduate and go on to being career and college ready. So you'll see in a second, we have a significant population that is not getting there. And so when they come to us in 7th grade, we've got 2 years to get them there. And that's what this program is geared at, is making sure that every freshman goes on ready to succeed. And then the third is, there's a research study by Johns Hopkins University. It says, if you are a 6th grader and you either have failed a math or language arts class, or you have an out-of-school suspension, or you have attendance that is 80% or less, you have a 75% chance of dropout without intervention. So what we are doing is trying, as with those kids that come in, to right track them and get them ready on the road so that the high school can run with them and get them career and college ready and set them on to life. So all of that being said, we create a period of time in our day to make this happen. Okay, so we will have, every 7th and 8th grader will have 30 minutes out of their day that is outside of any class, and this is what they'll be doing. I'm notoriously bad at clickers. So I cannot lay credit to this graphic. This is Jen. She's outstanding stuff. And I love it because it's all the puzzle pieces to the whole child, right? So
That
good.
was my thinking.
So good. First, we're looking at math and reading. And our biggest concern was students who are 2 grade levels or below in math or reading. Currently, with last year's diagnostic in the spring, that was 36% of our students in math and 24% of our students in reading. So that's the benchmark we're trying to beat. We want that number to be lower next spring, and we want our number from the fall to go down also next spring. So we're looking at 2 data points that we're trying to improve upon. We're going to be doing that by students who are in a math or reading intervention 2 days a week. They will be using iReady instructional components, so they will have a targeted lesson that iReady uses their diagnostic assessment to give them twice a week to try to improve. They'll be pre-taught and retaught material that is in their class, so they're getting additional time, especially in math. If we are learning how to apply ratios this week, we know that the students at the 3rd grade level in math, we know that they have a problem with just finding common denominators. So here's a time for them to sit down and review that and make sure that they are pre-taught and ready to go in with that skill refreshed. So they'll get some basic skills work. And then one of the nice things that iReady does for us too is based on their diagnostic, they do grouped mini lessons. So the teacher can take these 4 students who are all at the same level in measurement, and iReady provides a lesson that you give those students to engage in to try to improve them from where they're at. So these are students who are 2 grade levels or more behind. They will be spending that time getting math or reading intervention. Students who are failing 3 or more courses, and I'm gonna need to check my phone here to remind myself of what that data point was. So that data point turned out to be for the 2nd semester, we go by semester, so in a whole school year, it was 23% of our students.
That's a lot higher than it was in the first semester. If any of you have had 8th graders, you might know why that happens, that second semester, 8th grade year. But that's the number we're trying to beat. We are looking at the SOAR study skills curriculum, so that provides them some basic skills and organization and time management. If you're in this intervention, the teacher running it will have a parent connection to set up, where in your house do you do your homework? What time of night are you doing your homework? Following up with the teachers and the parent to connect every Friday to see, did that happen every day? Sometimes they'll provide some homework help, and then they'll do a check-in, check-out with teachers. Is the student doing what they need to in class? Are they utilizing their time wisely? So there's a lot of just kind of teaching that student how do you be a student? How do you pass classes? This is for a lot of those students who either disengage or have motivational issues, or maybe have a hard time organizing. We'll have a behavior intervention. This is geared for those students who have been suspended out of school. We'll be using character education with them. We have a fantastic behavior interventionist. Some of you might know Derek Ash. He's a Cedar Springs graduate, connects really well with those middle school kids. So he'll be doing some conflict resolution training with them, running restorative circles with them, also connecting with the parents, and then checking in and checking out with the teachers around behavior. He might provide some academic supports as well, because some students, their behavior is poor because they are so low academically. So if he determines that's the case, he might be trying to help them in that area. We have some students who will rate high on our student screener called the SRSS, or students who have chronic absenteeism, and the issue is either anxiety or a mental health issue. So our child life interventionist, Megan Skinner, who's outstanding, has been going to training in mindfulness, and we'll be doing mindfulness practice with them on a daily basis, giving them coping skills instruction, running social skills groups so they can talk with each other and try to support each other, and then making a parent connection, also using circles to try to support those students. So the idea here, make them feel more comfortable in school, make them feel like this is a place that they can be healthy. So these are our interventions. Those are the areas that we are trying to attack. I forgot to mention my data point here. 22 students last year were receiving out-of-school suspension in our building, and 7 of them repeated, were suspended a second time. So what we're looking for, that 22 is about 5%. We want that to go down, but what we're really looking at is what is the percentage of students who, what's our recidivism rate? So we were at about 33%. We want that number to go down. Once a student makes a mistake, is suspended, this intervention should cause them to not do it again. So that's what we're hoping for there. This mental health, this year we had, I think it was 8% of our students rated red on the SRSS at the end of the school year. We want that number to be lower at the end of next school year. So each intervention has a monitoring data point that we can look at.
Brian, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
just to
please
help
do.
The board? What happens if a student qualifies in more than one area?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's where our tier 2 and 3 team, which is myself, Bill Cataldo, our new Dean of Students. Thank you for that, it's awesome. He will be great. Our child life interventionist, our behavior interventionist, we will all, and our community school coordinator, we will all sit down with each kid and their data and try to target which is the best. What's gonna make the most sense for the student. If we find that they are 2 grade levels below in reading, they've been suspended a few times, and they rated high in the SRSS, I might think the number one concern is right here. That might be explaining both of those. So this is where they're gonna go at first, and then let's see what happens. Maybe we need to get them into some more intensive mental health support, and we pair that with behavior. So it just depends. It's a great question. So those are our interventions. So that's not all of our students. That's actually probably guessing 20 to 30% of our students. I haven't crunched numbers yet. That will actually be getting intervention. The rest of the students are going to be rotating through 3 different enrichments. One will be science, one will be book club, one will be social studies. So in science, we have a list of standards this long, and plus we ask the science teachers to help them improve their skills in informational reading and writing, and they need to have lab experiences in which they're discussing phenomena. It's really dense. So this is the time for that science teacher to grab the topics that they think will be most interesting to kids and play around with them. There is not a curriculum per se. They have 30 minutes for high interest, and all I'm asking them to do is to infuse that informational reading and writing at times to try to get that out of the curriculum so that they have more time to be discussing phenomena. Social studies, same thing. You have a pretty thick list of standards. You don't have much time to discuss and chew on current events in the world around you. And Michigan, what's going on in Michigan today. 7th and 8th grade is a great time to start learning about those basics of civics. You're starting to get to that age where you can understand some of that. So they'll be infusing some informational reading and writing into current events. And then students, so every student will rotate through each one of those and then to a book club. Our librarian, Sherry Andrus, along with teacher, will be, they have 3 sets of books that they'll be running book clubs with students where they will just read for enjoyment. They're high interest middle school level. A couple of them have some really good messages. One of them is just really fun. And she'll be engaging kids in discussions around those books. So it's going to be reading for enjoyment. So there is a reading focus on all of that, but with the 2, it's informational. With the 3rd, it's joy of reading. So questions, that was a lot in a little, but if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah.
So just for curiosity, how do you call 1-800-BRIAN to start the intervention, or how does that work?
You can. I don't know what you'll get if you dial that number. So what do you mean, like as far as?
Well, how do teachers? What's the identification process?
Yeah. So we'll be crunching numbers to figure out which student. So you're asking, how does a student get placed in intervention? We have all of those data points I described. Every kid either has one of those flags or doesn't. So if a student has an out-of-school suspension from last year, they'll be in there. Yep, if they were read on the SRSS, if their absenteeism was less than 90, or their attendance rate was less than 90%, or we have that fall diagnostic from iReady if they were 2 grade levels below. And we really do rely on that iReady up through the 7th grade because there's a very strong correlation with MSTEP. So we know that as our iReady data improves, our student achievement on MSTEP should also be improving. So that's pretty much, it's just going to be, we sit down with all the kids, crunch their data, and that's where they go. The teachers are our teachers. So the math interventions are our 2 math teachers, reading is our 2 ELA teachers, and then the interventionists are doing the other elements.
The librarian in me wants to know what the 3 books are. I'm really curious.
Well, I'll email you because I don't remember. She brought me I told her, and she was like, yeah. She got so excited, and she brought me 10 book titles, all with their descriptions, and said, which ones? And I'm like, I don't remember. One of them was something about the egg, or the egghead, or the eggs something. I don't remember what it was. But it was basically the importance of a bystander in a bullying situation. It's kind of from the perspective of the bystander. There were a couple of them that were really cool messages, and then one that was just like a fun mystery novel. So she's pretty excited. I don't think I'm going to be able to contain her in a book. She's got creative writing ideas, and she's just like, but this is kind of fun when you think about, if you've ever read about Google and their Genius Hour Day where they allow their employees to just go have fun for a day but do work. I'm telling my teachers, those science, social studies, and the librarian, create. I'm not putting any reins on you. Just keep it in your subject area and make sure kids enjoy it. It's fun.
With that creation that you're allowing for, I do like that, but at the same time, we just talked about that vertical, horizontal piece. How do we align those or make sure that we're speaking to everything else?
The alignment will come. The only thing that we'll be aligning in those is the informational reading and writing. So there'll be there's grade level standards for how you do that. And the Common Core, it's literacy in the technical subjects. So that will be aligned vertically. The content all comes within there, because all those kids will still have science and social studies, every kid. So that's where they will make sure that they get a vertical alignment of content. Horizontal alignment in our building is real easy because our content partners meet twice a week. So they'll be doing the same thing in there. It's a great question.
So 70 to 75% of our students are going to those 3 rotating
Yeah.
classes.
That's a guess.
I understand.
Yeah.
So 25 or 20, however the number is, are going to these other interventions or reading catch-up, math catch-up.
Correct.
Is there any concern about the perception of group 1 and group 2 and how they interact before, after, during? When I was in school, we had a spelling club, and the good spellers were the superstars, and the second spellers were group 2.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't want to get into. So
No,
I'm
I know.
curious how you work through that.
When I was in middle school, we had like the fully tracked system, and we were shoes, and everybody knew that like the New Balance was the high track, and then Converse was like the low track.
Sure, right.
But yeah, actually, you know,
About that a little
the
bit.
funny thing is, like in middle school, academically, kids don't do that as much as they do socially. Like it's terrible, like the social hierarchy, if you've had middle schoolers, you know, that like takes shape and blah, blah. I don't find, in my experience now, in middle school for 6-7 years as a principal, that I hear a lot of students caring if they're in the help class or they're not. They really just want to perform academically, and if they're with, you know, if they're in an intervention or some type of support class like that, even special education, it helps them to perform with all the other kids in their math class. They're happy about that. So we'll hope not. Now, if you change your data, you're out of intervention, you're in the other group. So there's some motivation there as well. You know, they have a chance if they're in the reading and math, 3 times a year, they have an opportunity to affect their data as well. But you know, it's fair. We hopefully what we don't run into are kids who are disengaged because they're worried about that.
Well, and I'm even concerned about, you know, bullying is such a big deal.
Yeah.
Are these 70%, if that's the number, who
Mhm.
are academically, you know, achieving what we're expecting, going to be looking down on or, you know, reacting in a certain way to this other 30%? And if so,
Yeah.
you know, what are our plans to curb that?
Yeah, I mean, well, we deal with that that's our life, yeah. Like I said, typically the bullying issues we run into, in my experience, are not as much about academics, it's much more about social hierarchy, you know. But that can kind of be infused and stuff. We definitely have to be careful that if a student's in a mental health intervention, nobody else realizes that they're in a mental health, like we're not gonna label it that kind of thing. So if you're in the behavior intervention, that's not what we're gonna call it, so, yeah. But it is definitely something we'll have to,
Looks really good.
yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes, and we'll tweak, but we want to see every one of those kids go on ready to go.
So with the 3, the social studies book club and science, are we incorporating math into that, or is that just?
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit.
They might, I mean, some of the activities they do in science will be STEM activities. Like one of the ones we talked about was, you may have remembered, like the building the bridge out of toothpicks and stuff. And so there's a lot of math in there, but it'll probably be, I see it more as just kind of those current, even some science current events. Like, do we look at weather? Do we look at climate? One of the things we talked about was, do we have so they're going to rotate through every 3 weeks. So for one of those quarters is the focus Michigan. So like current events in Michigan, science of our local watersheds, things like that, and then the book club book is a Michigan history book or a Michigan. So it's going to be more around that. So I don't see a ton of math. Yeah.
And then difference between reading and book club? Is there a?
What those reading kids will be getting? The intervention.
Is it just defining the different intervention?
Well, the book club is not an intervention, it's just going to be reading for fun like that.
Sure.
This reading intervention, they won't be reading a book. They're going to be looking at reading strategies to build skills. So a lot of those kids who are 2 or more grade levels behind are still working on like phonological awareness, constructions of words, things like that. So they're going to be doing more work on learning how to read. That's why we go 2 to 3 grade levels below, or if you're only 1 grade level behind, when you're in 7th grade, you're past that level of learning how to read a word, put together a sentence.
So, to follow up with Jeff's point of, I mean, kids all know the difference between learners, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm hearing is, the 3 classes on the left side there are the fun classes, But if you're in intervention, I mean, are we gonna have a focus that that learning is fun also? Or it's not, you're behind and you're gonna get smashed?
I'm gonna give you a goal and you're gonna try to achieve it. A bunch of kids trying to make a goal.
Right,
Yeah.
with joy. And, I mean,
Oh,
but you see what
yeah.
I'm saying? You see my concern?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's where our outstanding teachers come in. Yeah, we have to make that exciting. If you approach it from a negative perspective, you really won't get anywhere with those students. I mean, when you think about a 7th grade student who's still at a 3rd grade reading level, that's been a struggle for 4 or 5 years. But if you grow, you should see kind of kids' eyes when they grow 2 years in one, and they find out I was at a 3rd grade reading level, now I'm at a 5th. That's pretty exciting for those kids. Makes it pretty well worth it. The nice thing, I've had some experience with this in the past before I came to Cedar Springs, especially with our students with disabilities. In the math intervention, when you see kids who have been lost in math for years, but now with the pre-teaching go in and can engage with everybody else, you see kids get a lot of excitement out of that. With some of our special education students, they'll be giving up an encore hour to get this math intervention. And that sounds like, why would a kid ever want to give up PE for that? But in my experience, I've seen kids love doing that because for the first time in however long, they feel like they belong in that math classroom.
Thank you.
In the regular language arts class, and I'm concerned about the reading only because working in a library, you have a lot of students that come in and say, I can't read such and such because I have to read this at my level. And so in the school, it's not in the school district, so I'm not worried about that. But there are teachers in the school district that my library serves where they don't encourage pleasure reading. And I think that affects those kids who can't read very well. That affects them a great deal. If they're only allowed to read certain things because they can't read very well, they lose interest in reading altogether, and it makes the problem worse. So I guess my question is, those kids that are in the reading intervention, in the regular, there are still opportunities for pleasure reading in other parts of the school day.
At the Lexile, I mean, you want to give any kid just kind of a little bit higher Lexile and they're able to read that.
Sure.
A student at a 3rd grade reading level reading an 8th grade book, that's tough.
Right. Oh yeah.
But there are things that I went into. I saw a 7th grader who's one of our best readers reading the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's like a 4th grade reading level. So there are high interest things at that, but that's where we love our librarians to be able to know those Lexiles and help guide kids towards them. Knowing our English language arts teachers, I can't imagine anyone saying don't read for pleasure.
Well, and I don't mean to imply that. I just wanted to make sure that, because as the president pointed out, the book club sounds really fun, but the reading doesn't.
Yeah,
So
the reading intervention.
That concerns me.
Yeah, you can make that fun too by the reading intervention. Middle school kids still like to be read to. So if you have the teacher, we've done this with intervention before in reading, doing a part of their time by the day, reading along with a book that maybe they wouldn't be able to handle on their own, but they have a novel and they're reading it together with the teacher, that can help with some of that interest level. Yeah. But you're right, it's work, a lot more than the book club will be.
I think that book you were talking about is iPad.
Yeah.
I was doing a little Google.
That's right. Cool. Okay. Yeah, that looked interesting. That's one of the books. Good message.
On a side note, do our middle school students know that their job during that time period is to get ready for high school? I've
While they're
never
there?
thought about it in the way that you presented that. That is what you're doing. You're getting ready to be successful freshmen and go on into a successful high school career. Do they know that?
So I don't know. I've been here a year. That's language that I always use.
Okay.
So all I can say is I'm always like anytime I speak to parents and kids, I'm just saying what we do is important, but understand what we do is to get you there.
I think that's a great way to put that. Because if I'm a student, I think that's very important. What is this for? What am I doing this for? Now you're going to get into 9th grade and become a freshman, and then those grades start to mean a lot of things. So that's what you're doing it for. You're doing it to be successful at the next step of your education. I
Jeff, that speaks a bit to some of the flight plan materials with being life ready, college ready,
Right,
career
sure.
ready. And some of the conversations we started to have are around a pre-K-12 career and college readiness continuum of, you know, what does it look like to be prepared for life in kindergarten versus 6th grade versus 9th grade? And what are we doing intentionally to help kids see that future vision of who am I becoming? What are my goals and aspirations? So I think that's some work that will come out of our flight plan,
Right,
hopefully.
right. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I just had one other question. Most of my other thoughts were already answered. But how are the students going to be notified where they're supposed to go or which?
They're not, so on their power school, it just says homeroom, and they're assigned to a homeroom teacher.
Okay.
And when they get to their homeroom teacher, that homeroom teacher's gonna say, this is what we're gonna do. And then for some of them, their homeroom teacher will rotate. So they'll know why they're there, why they're at that homeroom. And then their parents will be getting some information about, here are our goals in this time, here's specifically the data point we're trying to impact, what we're trying to do.
Okay, so it'll be called homeroom, but that could be
Yeah.
changing every 2 to
I'm hoping to find a snazzier name than homeroom, but we're definitely not calling it intervention block.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Are the special ed kids going to be broken up, or do they still get to know it? By the 7th and 8th grade, they know what group they're in.
Yeah,
So are they going
Most of them
to
are
be able
gonna-
to be busted up a little bit for
we are
some
doing one,
differentiation?
so there's, like I said before, one of the kind of data points I was looking to affect was students with disabilities. There's a lot of changes that we've made in the past year to how we deliver special education. A lot of that is happening, so we're kind of pulling out of their gen ed setting and letting, and their gen ed students, but then giving them support time outside of that, so that's during that encore hour. So that means during the intervention block, they'll be able to either get intervention in something else or participate with all the other kids in something. We are doing one reading intervention with special education kids in the 8th grade because we want those kids to have the most opportunity to take, you know, health and Spanish and high school credit classes if they're at that level. But a lot of those special education, they won't be grouped together during this intervention
Okay, so
block.
you want the special education to take it early? No, that's not what you're saying.
What I would like is in 8th grade, I want to have, if possible, special education students to have encores because of the fact that we have so many high school credits. So we did use intervention block to provide some service for special education. But in 7th grade, we did that.
I know you talked about setting goals and you talked about getting, you know, the students to work together to achieve those. When you're 2 grade levels or more behind, how do you inspire them to not give up?
Yeah.
You know, how do you get them to buy into the program? I know the teachers have a huge part of it, right? Great
Yeah.
teachers, like you said.
Yeah.
But what's the way you start that in order to keep them positive and focused
So,
on
I
learning?
mean, if I'm a teacher, I'm just saying, I'm going to be, first of all, I'm supremely positive all the time, but I'm just going to be honest and say, hey, you know, right now, your grade level, it says 3rd grade. The work we're going to do, you're going to reach your stretch goal, which has you in the middle of 6th grade, middle of 5th grade. This is where we're going to be at the end of the year, and you're going to be more comfortable in your ELA class because of it. It's not always going to be easy, but we need to work together on it every day. We have some really good teachers as far as connecting with kids and motivation. So that's going to be their work in that half an hour. And those kids excited. You know, some of them won't be, but when they see their data change, they all get excited. Yeah, every kid wants to succeed, even if they walk around with their head down looking at the floor all day. They still want to succeed, and they love it when they do. They love being told that they succeeded. So, give them that opportunity.
Thanks for bringing this new language to the middle school.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, let's do it.
They say one of the hallmarks of effective leadership is taking a group from an existing state to a desired state. And, you know, Brian has done an outstanding job leading in the middle school by just asking the question, what if? You know, what if we thought about our schedule differently? What could we do to provide some additional supports and additional opportunities for our students if we thought differently? And it's not been an easy thing. Typically, people like to stay in the status quo, but it's a great testimony to the team at the middle school and their desire, the teachers and their willingness to take on this extra challenge of supporting students. And again, I'm excited to see where the data goes as we move this out of the harbor. So thanks for making this happen.
All right, that's the end of our work session, yes? Okay, and planning, our next regular board meeting is August 12th, and that one's at 6:45, not 6 o'clock. And with that, we will adjourn.